That rainy Tuesday evening started like any other for 27-year-old Hazel Morrison. But by midnight, she would discover a truth so shocking it would shatter her world and rebuild it in ways she never imagined possible. The little girl, sitting alone in the rain outside Murphy's diner, wasn't just any hungry child. She was the key to unlocking a mystery that had haunted Hazel's dreams for over 2 decades. Hazel pressed her face against the diner's rain-streaked window, her breath fogging the glass as she stared at the small figure huddled on the steps across the street. Something about the child made her chest tighten with an inexplicable urgency. It wasn't just compassion, it was something deeper, more primal. Like a voice from her past whispering that this moment would change everything. The little girl couldn't have been more than 4 years old, wearing a cream-colored hooded coat that hung like a tent around her tiny frame. Her blonde hair escaped in damp tendrils from beneath the hood, and her small white sneakers were soaked through. But it was her posture that broke Hazel's heart. The child sat with a stillness that spoke of learned patience, the kind that comes from being forgotten too many times, another late shift, another broken heart to witness. Hazel murmured to herself, untying her navy apron with hands that trembled slightly. She'd been working at diner for 3 years, serving coffee and comfort to the neighborhood's forgotten souls. But something about tonight felt different, electric, like the air before a storm. Her white button-down shirt was still crisp despite the 12-hour shift. Her brown hair pulled back in a practical ponytail that had somehow stayed neat through the chaos of the dinner rush. But as she watched the child through the window, Hazel felt an overwhelming compulsion to act. As if invisible strings were pulling her toward a destiny she couldn't yet comprehend. The turkey and cheese sandwich she'd made for herself during her break sat wrapped in white paper on the counter behind her. She'd been looking forward to it during her walk home, her only real meal of the day. But the sight of that small, lonely figure made her own hunger seem insignificant. What, Hazel didn't know, was that the man watching from the shadows of the building next door had been standing there for 20 minutes. His heart breaking as he searched desperately for the right moment to approach his daughter. 38-year-old Ethan Blackwood's expensive dark suit was soaked through, his usually perfect hair disheveled from running through the rain-slicked streets, searching for the most precious thing in his world. But Ethan wasn't just any concerned father. He was a man carrying a secret so profound that when the truth finally emerged, it would reveal that this rainy evening had been orchestrated by forces beyond mere chance. As Hazel pushed through the diner's glass door, cold October air hit her like a physical blow. Each step toward the child felt weighted with significance, as if she were walking toward her own destiny. The rain had softened to a gentle mist, and her canvas sneakers splashed quietly through puddles that reflected the diner's warm yellow lights. "Hi there, sweetheart," Hazel said softly, crouching down to the child's level. Her voice carried a gentleness that seemed to surprise even herself. "Are you okay? Are you waiting for someone?" The little girl looked up, and Hazel's world tilted on its axis. Those eyes, those impossibly familiar blue-green eyes that had haunted her dreams since childhood. Eyes that belonged in memories she couldn't quite grasp, in a life that felt more like fragments of someone else's story. "I'm waiting for my daddy," the child said in a voice so small it was almost lost in the sound of distant traffic. "He said he'd be right back, but I've been counting, and it's been 423 seconds. The precision of the count, the way the child spoke with such careful articulation, sent chills down Hazel's spine. This wasn't an abandoned child. This was a little girl who had been taught to count seconds, to measure time, to wait with the patience of someone who had been promised that waiting would always be worth it. "What's your name, honey?" Hazel asked, her voice barely steady. "Lily," the girl replied, and then added with heartbreaking honesty, "I'm really, really hungry. Daddy forgot to pack my snacks because he was upset about something on the phone." Name hit Hazel like a physical blow. Lily, the name she'd whispered to herself as a child. The name she'd planned to give her own daughter someday. The name that appeared in dreams she could never quite remember upon waking. Without hesitation, Hazel held out the wrapped sandwich. "Would you like this? I made it myself." Turkey and cheese with just a little bit of mustard. Just the way I liked them when I was your age." As Lily accepted the sandwich with both small hands, her eyes filled with tears of gratitude. "You're very kind," she said with a formality that seemed far too adult for her age. "Daddy says kind people are angels in disguise." The word struck Hazel like lightning. Angels in disguise. Her adoptive mother used to say the exact same thing in the exact same way. But that couldn't be coincidence, could it? From the shadows across the street, Ethan Blackwood watched the scene unfold with growing amazement and growing fear. He'd spent the last 23 years searching for someone, following every lead, hiring every investigator, chasing every ghost of a memory. And now, watching this young woman kneel beside his daughter with such natural tenderness, he felt a recognition so profound it made his knees weak. The way she moved, the way she tilted her head when she listened, the way she held the sandwich out with both hands. Exactly the way his little sister used to share her food 23 years ago. But it couldn't be her. Could it, Lily? Can you tell me your daddy's name? Hazel asked gently. Though every instinct screamed that she already knew the answer would change her life forever. Before Lily could respond, the sound of running footsteps echoed off the wet pavement. Ethan emerged from the shadows, no longer able to watch from a distance, his face a mask of panic and relief and something else, something that looked disturbingly like recognition. "Lily, oh God, Lily, there you are." He rushed toward them, and Hazel looked up to see a man whose eyes were the exact same shade of blue-green as the child's, the exact same shade as the eyes she saw in her mirror every morning. But it was more than the eyes. It was the shape of his face, the way his mouth curved when he smiled with relief, the way his hands shook as he reached for his daughter, features that belonged in half-remembered dreams, in the shadows of memories she'd spent years trying to piece together. "Daddy, this angel lady gave me her sandwich," Lily said, still clutching the meal. "She said she made it just the way she liked them when she was my age." Ethan froze. His eyes locked with Hazel's, and in that moment, 23 years elapsed into nothing. The careful composure he'd maintained during years of boardroom meetings and business. Negotiations crumbled as he stared at the face he'd been searching for since he was 14 years old. "What's your name?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. "Hazel," she replied, and watched as his face went completely white. "Hazel Morrison." "Morrison," he repeated, and Hazel saw his hands begin to shake. "What was your name before Morrison?" "Da!" The question hung in the air like a challenge to fate itself. Leslie felt her world spinning, memories clawing at the edges of her consciousness like wild animals trying to break free from a cage she'd built to protect herself from a past too painful to remember. "I don't know," she whispered. "I was adopted when I was 4. I don't remember anything before that." Ethan knelt down beside Lily, never taking his eyes off Hazel's face. When he spoke, his voice was thick with tears and 23 years of desperate hope. "Your name was Hazel Elizabeth Blackwood. You had a big brother named Ethan who used to read you stories every night, used to sneak you cookies from the kitchen when Mom was too sick to notice, promised he would find you someday, no matter how long it took." The words hit Hazel like a tsunami of memory. Images flashed through her mind in rapid succession. A cramped apartment that always smelled like medicine and sadness. A teenage boy with kind eyes who sang lullabies when the shouting got too loud. Small hands making a bracelet out of colored beads for the boy who was more parent than brother. "No," she breathed, but even as she said it, she knew it was true. "No, that's impossible." Ethan reached into his jacket pocket with trembling fingers and pulled out a small worn bracelet made of faded plastic beads. Red, blue, yellow, green, in exactly the pattern a 4-year-old would think was beautiful. "Ate this for me the morning they came to take you away," he said, his voice breaking. "You said it was so I would never forget you. I've carried it every single day for 23 years. Hazel stared at the bracelet, and suddenly the dam burst. Memories flooded back with devastating clarity. The social worker with the kind smile, and the lying eyes. The promise that she would see Ethan again soon. The way her brother had tried to hide her in the closet, had fought the adults who came to tear their world apart. Ethan, she whispered, and his name on her lips felt like coming home and falling apart, all at the same time. Yeah, little sister. It's me. Lily looked between them, with the intuitive understanding that children possess. Are you my Aunt Hazel? The one Daddy looks for on his computer every night? The revelation hit like another shockwave. You've been looking for me? Ethan laughed. Through his tears, a sound caught between joy and hysteria. Looking for you? Hazel, I've spent every day of the last 23 years looking for you. I hired private investigators. I searched every database. I followed every lead, no matter how slim. I built my entire life around finding you. Built your life? I don't understand. The company, the money, all of it. I became successful so I'd have the resources to search for you. So that when I found you, I could take care of you the way I should have when we were kids. Hazel felt the world spinning around her. What company? Blackwood Technologies. We develop software for child protective services, help families stay together, help people find missing relatives. Everything I've built has been about finding you and making sure no other family gets torn apart the way ours was. The irony was staggering. Her brother had become one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs in the country. All in service of finding her. While she had spent her adult life working in diners and dreaming of opening a small restaurant. But how did you know? She asked. How could you possibly know it was me just from seeing me help Lily? Ethan's smile was radiant through his tears. Because you did the same thing when you were 4 years old? Every day without fail, you would. Give half your food to me or to any other kid who looked hungry. Even when we barely had enough for ourselves, you always shared. It was who you were then, and apparently it's who you are now. I don't remember, Hazel said, though even as she spoke, flashes of memory began to surface. A small hand pushing half a peanut butter sandwich across a tiny table, the little girl insisting that sharing made everything taste better. There's more, Ethan said gently. Things that will be hard to hear, but that you deserve to know.
Hazel
Braced herself, sensing that the revelations weren't over. Our parents didn't die, Hazel. They gave us up. Mom's addiction got worse, and Dad left when the bills piled up. They surrendered us to the state rather than get clean and fight for us. The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain Hazel had ever experienced. All these years she'd carried. A story about parents who died in an accident, a tragedy that explained her abandonment. To learn it had been a choice, a surrender, felt like losing them all over again. But here's what they don't know, Ethan continued, his voice growing stronger. They don't know that their broken little boy became successful beyond their wildest dreams. They don't know that their discarded little girl grew up to be the most genuinely kind person I've ever encountered. They threw away 2 miracles, and they'll never even know what they lost. As if sensing the emotional weight of the moment, Lily crawled from her father's lap into Hazel's arms. Don't be sad, Aunt Hazel. Daddy says sometimes the worst things that happen to us make room for the best things. Hazel held her niece close, breathing in the scent of child's shampoo and innocence, and felt something broken inside her begin to heal. This little girl, this miracle of a child, was family. Real family. What happened to Lily's mother? Hazel asked softly. Ethan's face clouded with grief. Sarah died 2 years ago. Cancer. She fought so hard, but in the end... ... He trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. I'm so sorry, Hazel said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. She would have loved you, Ethan said. In fact, she's the reason I never gave up searching. She made me promise that I wouldn't. Let Lily grow up without knowing she had an aunt who loved her, even if we couldn't find you. But we did find her, Lily said brightly. And she gave me a sandwich, just like in the fairy tales, where the princess gives food to strangers and they turn out to be magic. The 3 of them sat there on the wet steps as the rain stopped completely, and the first stars began to appear through the breaking clouds. Around them, the city hummed with late-night energy, but they existed in a bubble of their own making. A family reunited by impossible odds, and the simple act of sharing a sandwich. What happens now? Hazel asked, overwhelmed by the magnitude of everything that had changed in the space of an hour. We figure out how to be a family, Ethan said. We take it one day at a time, and we never, ever take each other for granted again. And we have pancakes for breakfast? Lily added. Daddy makes terrible pancakes, but maybe Aunt Hazel can teach him? Hazel laughed, the sound surprising her with its genuine joy. I make excellent pancakes, as a matter of fact. There's something else, Ethan said, his expression growing serious. Something I need to tell you, and you're not going to like it at first. Hazel tensed, not sure she could handle another revelation. I want to give you money. A lot of money. Enough to open that restaurant you've always dreamed about. How could you possibly know about the restaurant? Ethan smiled sheepishly. I may have done some research on you once I suspected who you were. Your coworkers are very chatty when a well-dressed stranger offers to pay for everyone's coffee. Ethan, I can't take your money. Yes, you can, and you will, 'cause it's not charity, and it's not guilt money. It's an investment in the sister, who shared her food with hungry children when she was barely more than a baby herself. Recognition of the woman who gave her dinner to my daughter without knowing who she was or what she could get in return. But no buts. I've been successful beyond my wildest dreams, but what good is success if you can't share it with the people you love? I spent 23 years wondering if you were happy, if you were safe, if you had enough to eat. Now, I know you're safe and happy, but I also know you've been working multiple jobs just to pay rent on a studio apartment, while you save pennies toward a dream that would take you 20 years to achieve on your own. The accuracy of his assessment stunned her. How do you know about my apartment? Because I know you, little sister. Even after all these years, I know your heart. You're too generous to keep money for yourself when you see people who need it. More, you probably give away half your tips to customers who can't afford their meals. Hazel's silence was answer enough. So here's what's going to happen, Ethan continued. Tomorrow morning, we're going to start looking for the perfect location for Morrison's family table. We're going to design a kitchen that will make your heart sing, and a dining room that will welcome every person who walks through the door. Like family. And we're going to build something beautiful together. Morrison's family table? Hazel asked. Well, it'll be a Blackwood family business, but I figure you've earned the right to keep the name you've made your own. 3 months later, Hazel stood in the kitchen of her new restaurant, watching through the pass-through window as Ethan helped Lily with her coloring books at their regular table. The lunch rush was in full swing, and the dining room buzzed with the comfortable energy of a place where people felt at home. Morrison's family table had become everything she dreamed of and more. The walls were painted in warm yellows and soft blues, with mismatched furniture that somehow worked perfectly together. Local artists displayed their work on the walls, and a small corner was dedicated to children's books and toys. Magic happened in the interactions between staff and customers, in the way conversations sparked between strangers, in the way loneliness seemed to dissolve in the warmth of shared meals. Aunt Hazel, Lily called out, can you make me one of your special grilled cheese sandwiches? It's the kind with 3 different cheeses and the secret ingredient. Coming right up, sweetheart, Hazel called back, already reaching for the artisanal bread and aged cheeses that had made her grilled cheese. Legendary throughout the neighborhood, as she prepared Lily's sandwich, Hazel thought about the journey that had brought her here. The turkey and cheese sandwich she'd given to a hungry child had been the key that unlocked a door to a life she'd never dared to imagine. But more than that, it had taught her that kindness creates ripples that extend far beyond what we can see. The bell above the door chimed, and Hazel looked up to see a young mother enter with 2 small children, both of whom looked tired and hungry. The woman was counting change in her purse with the careful attention of someone who had to make every dollar count. Without hesitation, Hazel filled a basket with fresh bread, homemade soup, and cookies that were still warm from the oven. She carried it over to their table personally. Welcome to Morrison's, she said with a warm smile. These are on the house. I hope you'll enjoy them. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Thank you so much. You have no idea what this means. Actually, Hazel said, glancing over at her brother and niece, I think I do. From across the restaurant, Ethan watched his sister. With boundless pride, he'd spent 23 years searching for her, but in the end, she'd revealed herself through the same generous spirit that had defined her as a child. The little girl who had shared her food with anyone who was hungry had grown into a woman Who opened her heart and her table to everyone in need? "Daddy," Lily said, tugging on his sleeve, "do you think there are other families out there who need to find each other?" "I'm sure there are, sweetheart. And maybe we should help them, like Aunt Hazel helped us, by being kind." Ethan smiled at his daughter, marveling at her wisdom. "You know what? I think that's exactly what we should do." 6 months later, the Blackwood Foundation launched its first initiative, a program that used advanced technology and old-fashioned kindness to reunite families separated by circumstance, addiction, and bureaucracy. They called it the Second Chances Project, and its headquarters was a small office above Morrison's family table. Every day, Hazel would look up from her kitchen to see her brother working at his laptop, following leads and coordinating searches, while Lily colored pictures of families holding hands. And every day, marveled at how a simple sandwich had not only brought her own family back together, but had inspired them to help other families do the same. The sandwich that had changed everything had become the first domino in a chain reaction of miracles. Because sometimes the smallest acts of kindness don't just change one life or two lives. Sometimes they change the world, one reunion at a time, as the evening light streamed through the restaurant windows, casting golden rays over the families. Gathered around the tables, Hazel felt a deep sense of purpose. She had found her brother, gained a niece who filled her heart with joy, and built the life she'd always dreamed of. But more than that, she had learned that love, like food, is meant to be shared, and that sometimes the most extraordinary destinies begin with the most ordinary acts of human kindness. The bell above the door chimed one more time, and Hazel looked up to see more customers entering, their faces brightening as they stepped into the warmth and welcome of Morrison's family table. She wiped her hands on her apron and prepared to greet them, knowing that each meal served, each kindness offered, each connection made was another thread in the tapestry of miracles that had begun with a sandwich and a little girl sitting alone in the rain. After all, you never know when your next act of kindness might reunite a family, change a destiny, or save a soul that desperately needs saving.